Look, I never do this, but if we reach 500 likes on this video, I'll bring you 7 theories about Luffy's mother. Come on now. It is, without any sense. Today we continue with the section of 7 theories and this time it's about the character of Luffy, the protagonist of the work. And you already know that this section of 7 theories is one of my favorites. And as I said, today I'm bringing you 7 theories of Luffy, but I've tried to make them a bit varied, as we'll go from power-ups to the future of the series, to theories that are really crazy, and especially the last one, really crazy, but there's a lot of people who believe that will happen like that. And well, we'll talk about it later, but it's interesting. As always, I want to say that these kinds of videos take a lot of work, so I would really appreciate a big like and a subscription to support the video, and let me know in the comments what you are doing while you get on to set this video as background. As I say, I know many of you play them to sleep, to eat, or for many other things, and truly I am constantly surprised by what you write in the comments, because each time you tell me crazier things than before. And let's move on to the first of the 7 theories about Luffy's character. The first is that he has Roger's disease. Well, as we know, this theory is very popular. It is something that has commented on a lot. Really, this theory has been talked about a ton, and it's something you have probably heard. That's why I wanted to bring it up in today's video and wanted it to be in the first place. And it's because I wanted to talk about the topic of Roger's illness, since it's a theory that despite the years passing, the theory continues to hold. Current. In fact, there are even people who think that more arguments are being added and that more things are coming up. And in fact, maybe this is something I haven't seen anyone comment on, but perhaps in the last arc, the Egghead arc, we might have seen something else to add to this theory, and that it could be quite related to this. And if not with this, perhaps it could have another connection later. Well, the first thing we need to talk about is the illness that Roger had. Roger had an illness. Goldie, Roger, I'm obviously talking about, had an illness of which, well, we have no idea what it is about. I mean, we have no idea why it happened to him, when it happened exactly the moment he contracted it, why it came to him. We know nothing about this. In fact, the only thing we know is that he suffered from it, and even by bringing Crocus into his crew, who was supposed to be a very good doctor and who tried to cure Roger's illness, this is something he never achieved, and that Roger ultimately ended up passing away. Well, it is true that he surrendered and all of that, but well, he was already quite affected by his illness, and actually even left piracy and went on to do things that we still don't know about, which is another mystery and could perfectly give rise to 7 theories about Roger. And he went off to do a couple of things, but all of that came from the issue of the illness. As I said, we don't know anything, and seeing the parallels that may exist between Roger and Luffy, which are not few, obviously, there are many people saying that perhaps Luffy could have a disease very similar to Roger's towards the end of One Piece. This obviously, well, I mean, can we talk? Can we comment? Yes. The thing is that, as I say, there seem to be certain variations regarding the issue of the illness and regarding topics a bit different. Well, there are many people who say that Luffy might not have exactly the same illness as Roger, but a very similar one, simply to maintain those parallels. And this is something that we have seen Oda loves to do, the matter of maintaining the relationship between characters who share an inherited will, such as Ace and Sabo, as it is supposed Roger and Luffy could be, who actually share exactly the same dream. Well, there are many people talking about that. Indeed, Luffy is going to suffer from that illness. Then, as I say, there are certain variations and certain explanations of this illness. The thing is that one of the most important reasons being discussed, the topic of the illness, is that this illness could have been caused because there are several characters in One Piece who seem to have been affected too much by illnesses, such as the case of Shirohige, who is a character who was very powerful, but who was obviously nerfed due to the illness he had. And seeing Roger and Shirohige, 2 such powerful characters who have been, let's say in quotes, destroyed because of illness, well, it could happen that maybe Luffy, who is the protagonist of the series and obviously already has a power level by this point that is very high, And obviously this is gonna go much further. Well, obviously it could make quite a bit of sense that this in the future, that it could happen to Luffy and that he might have the same illness or something very similar, but the fact is that he would have an illness that would end his life and a disease that would put everyone on edge regarding what happens with this character. The theory obviously continues much further and explains to us where this disease might come from, and there is a very strong one suggesting that perhaps this disease is caused by Imu-sama, and we know the character Imu seems to be a very mysterious character of which we still have no idea about anything. There are many speculations. In fact, I think I haven't made 7 theories about Imu, and I could do it because, well, I could make 20 if you want about Imu, because since we know nothing, I could tell you it's Foxy in a black suit, and there you go. And well, you'd believe it because you'd probably see it makes sense. The thing is, it's supposed to be that. And according to this theory, one of the variations is that this disease is caused by the character Imu and precisely by the butterflies. And we have seen that this character is highly related to butterflies, constantly appearing with butterflies, and some say that maybe these butterflies are a clue, foreshadowing by Oda, to tell us that this is part of his power, and that maybe with those butterflies he can transmit diseases or can transmit certain things, which is, for example, what happened to Roger. And the theory says that, of course, having butterflies, which are things so harmless, well, he can take them, let's say, out of his palace, bring them to the normal world, and Roger, for example, encounters a butterfly. The butterfly gives him the illness, and that's it. In this way, Imu wouldn't leave the palace, has an incurable disease, and that would be it. This obviously makes sense. Well, it could happen. I mean, it's not something very crazy, and it's not something that it might not happen in the work. Now, believe me, that Imu has given him the disease. I don't know what to tell you, if exactly in this way or not. The fact that it is caused, to me, personally, well, it makes me think yes. I would tell you I'm more on the yes side than the no. Although I interpret the matter of the illness precisely with Roger and Shirohige, who are 2 monsters and the 2 most powerful pirates we've seen so far, with respect to Rocks, whom we haven't seen yet, but it's supposed that he was also very powerful. Well, of course, this character was supposed to be so powerful that nobody could defeat him. So the only thing they couldn't defeat was a disease. So the way I see it, it's a way for Oda to tell us that no matter how powerful you are, especially in the world of One Piece, it doesn't matter if the illness is so powerful. I mean, you can't do anything, let's say, in the physical aspect against a illness, because it is not an enemy you can defeat. It is something that goes on a completely different path from yours and does not require physical strength to overcome. In fact, even the theory, as I say, is complemented by the possibility that perhaps Luffy didn't die from this illness, that he had the illness, but managed to overcome it, and he wouldn't overcome it alone, obviously, but it would go hand in hand with Chopper's dream, and Chopper's dream is to cure all diseases. So clear and simple, and it's supposed that if Luffy contracts that disease, Chopper could appear and do what Crocus couldn't. He could cure his captain's illness and make his captain get better. Seeing a Luffy who would go through horrible states and have a very hard time, being told that he is going to die, and Chopper looking for a way to try to cure him. Seeing how he gets frustrated, seeing how it doesn't work for him, seeing maybe some more dramatic chapters, and then seeing how in the end, perhaps by chance, maybe for one reason, maybe for another, he manages to find the way to block, to stop that disease and make Luffy well. And no, I didn't mean the word peace referring to the One Piece being that, which it could be, but, well, let's go. No, I didn't mean it that way. The thing is, as I said, this illness theory, as you see, has many variations, whether it's gonna happen because of this or that. Another, if it will be cured, if it will not be cured, if the illness was caused, Roger's if he will have it because of this, because of the other thing. Well, the simple theory is that Luffy is supposed to have the same illness as Roger, whether it is the same or not, whether he dies or not. But anyway, Luffy being sick in general could be the name of the theory, and this is something that, as I said, has been very popular for many years, and to this day, from today, as I say, it continues to persist. So hey, it's curious, and especially what I said at the beginning, there's something that perhaps, in the end, it makes me think this has logic, and it's the character of Saturn, who today is dead, but we have seen that he implanted a disease in Ginny, who was Bonnie's mother, and then even the same daughter inherited it. So considering all of this, seeing that he even launched certain poison attacks towards Luffy, which Luffy picked up, Some even repelled it and such, but some hit him. It could be that Luffy has an illness from this moment and we still don't know it. It could be, maybe it's something that Oda adds unintentionally. I mean, that he sneaks in a little, twist that you don't notice and then it's super important. Well, it's very likely, but it's also it's probable, it's possible that later this doesn't have a major impact on the work and that it's simply something that happened and that's it, and we stop messing around and move on to something else, which is the Elbaf arc. Could be, maybe not, I don't know. As a first theory, I felt it was necessary to bring up this about Luffy's illness because the rest that remain are, hello? Let's go with the second one, and this time it's a power-up. We just, in quotes, in many quotes, because it's been a couple of years, saw the year 5. We just saw the 5th gear, the gear that appears in Wano with Joy Boy, Nika, and so on. Well, there are a lot of people, many people. I would say, I don't know, 80%, 90% think this is gonna be Luffy's final form. I mean, that there's nothing more. Luffy has the awakened fruit, supposedly. We see the Nika form, this form that we even saw in a flashback that seems like Joy Boy had the same fruit. We see, well, a power very different from Luffy's other gears. I mean, the 5th gear has nothing to do with the 4th. It's basically like a new gear. But well, there are many people who agrees with this statement that there will not be more transformations. I am precisely one of the people who is against this, and I believe that indeed he will have other transformations. Besides, I think that perhaps the 5th gear could have some variation, like how we had, I don't know, the year 4th Tankman, or Snakeman, or Boatman. Maybe we'll have the year 5th and something more, like an extra, right? The Tiger Man, for example, right? We could have like an extra of the 5th gear, and I think that would be interesting, actually, especially seeing that he is starting to master it a bit more despite the energy drain it has. The thing is, the idea of this theory is that there will be a 6th gear, that there will be a year 6. The thing is, Zara, do you agree with this theory? Can you explain it to me? Okay, let's see. I'm going to explain why I think there will be a year 6, and also, well, it goes with the argument of this theory. The thing is, according to what I think, we have to keep in mind that we are in a fictional work. We have to realize that we are in a manga, and we have to have, taking into account that this works as it works, and the industry works as it works. As I say, it has been a couple of years since Luffy unveiled the 5th gear and defeated Kaido. I don't know if it's been 3 years, 4, 2, I don't know, I'm really bad with dates. I seem like Oda, eh? I'm really bad. But the thing is that, as I said, it's been a couple of years since Luffy went 5th gear, defeated Kaido, unleashed all that power, and revealed the new transformation. The thing is, from here to the end of One Piece, really, Luffy will not have more transformations and will face Blackbeard, Emu, or whoever with the same transformation from 7 years ago, assuming One Piece still has about 7 more years, or something like that. I mean, is Luffy really gonna go through the rest of the story with that transformation and defeat the final villain without a new transformation? Personally, I believe it. I mean, I don't believe it. Either he has a variation of the 5th gear that he gradually discovers and brings out other variations or something like that, or he has a 6th gear, but I don't think Luffy will use the 5th gear from now until the end of the story, because there is quite a lot. I mean, we have the Elbaf arc left, maybe something later with, the Sky Islands, where we have to return to have more things explained, then something about the Void Century, the Revolutionaries, Blackbeard, the World Government, the Final War. I mean, Laugh Tale, the Lodestar. We have many things left to do. We have many years. And honestly, if Luffy stays at the same gear all the time, it would feel strange to me personally. As I said, maybe there is a 6th gear, a variation of the 5th, but to me, it suggests that yes. And there are people who might say that it doesn't make much sense within the work, and I can agree with you. At first, you might think that a 6th gear doesn't make sense because the 5th is supposed to be the form. Complete, it's supposed to be done. But well, we know how this works, we know it's a manga, and we know that Oda can pull something out of the hat to directly surprise us. But it would seem strange to me that being a shonen, being a manga, being something that has to sell a lot, being something that must also have pressure from the people above Oda, like the ones at the publishing house, who will put pressure to do certain things if they see that Oda has kept the same character transformation for 7 years and reaches the final arc, and Blackbeard arrives and Luffy keeps using the 5th gear all the time. For a while, I personally believe they will encourage him to say, hey, do something a little different from the 5th gear. Add something extra. Not only for the sake of figures, plushies, anime, eh? Social impact. I mean, all these things that a new transformation implies. You saw what happened with year 5. I mean, there's a lot of things. Figures, posters, everything. Plush toys, whatever you want. Obviously, all that is a new character, in quotes, for the franchise to make a lot of money from that. The thing is, could this directly push Oda to release the new gear? Not just for that reason. Yes. Obviously, it's not just going to be that factor, obviously, but it will have other extra things. I mean, I think that's already a hint for you to start thinking and say, hey, maybe you're right. The fact that Luffy cannot sustain a 5th gear all the time, because I don't believe he can maintain it for 8 years. And also the fact of saying, imagine in a final fight with Blackbeard, Luffy won't have the usual thing he has with all the important characters of bringing out a new power to try to defeat him. I mean, I'll give you the example of the New World. The characters important from the New World that Luffy has defeated, I mean, the ones Luffy has defeated one-on-one were Doflamingo and Kaido, meaning the ones only Luffy could win against. Then in Egghead or in Whole Cake, they have happened a few other things, and it was different. But then we have that against Doflamingo, who was there more or less holding on. He pulled out Gear 5th and won. With Kaido, he was there. Being beaten, he pulled out Gear 5th and won. Well, with Blackbeard, I don't think it will be an exception. I mean, I don't think Luffy will use Gear 5th the whole time and just win because of that and then get more serious. And no, I think he has to have something extra, a power-up. New, whether it's 6th gear or a variation of the 5th. I see it as something logical within the work. I mean, it's not because I've seen a panel that I rely on logic, by analyzing the work, seeing what Eiichiro Oda is writing, I say, okay, it seems logical to me that Luffy has these evolutions and transformations looking towards the future, because we are not talking about One Piece ending in 2 years. We are talking about, there's the whole Elbaf arc left, there's still everything involving the revolutionaries, the final war, the fight with Blackbeard. I mean, all this is still in the middle, and it's just stuff we know, because I remember that, for example, when we were in Zoo, we were supposed to go to Wano, and we ended up in Whole Cake, a new arc with another new emperor, with another new thing, with the Gear 4th Snakeman. So it was a new form. On top of that, none of this was expected, and Oda often does this to us. We were in Wano, and suddenly we ended up in Egghead with Vegapunk's island, the laboratory, all that stuff, which seemed like it might be at another time or a compliment to something. And Oda dedicated an arc to Vegapunk, and he said, here, an island, your arc, and your things. And it's something that has caught us a bit off guard. So with One Piece, we can't just go with what's certain. With what's certain, we already know this, that we are going to have 4 things have to happen, but then imagine that after Elbaf, we go to another place that nobody expects, and there's another enemy and another thing and so on. Really, One Piece doesn't have 2 years left. There are a few more. There are 5, 6, 7 years left. I don't know, but there are these. So hey, Luffy can't stay in 5th gear all the time. I know it's true that I'm not arguing what the 6th gear is going to be like, because look, man, the 5th just came out. How do I know what the 6th will be? That too. Leave that in the comments if you want. Well, I'll read them, but well, I can already imagine the absurdity of theories you're gonna say, in the sense that no, you're gonna say no, Luffy is gonna be super powerful because he's going to do I don't know what with the awakening of the rubber, and I don't know what, and I don't know. How much? I don't know, but I'm imagining it, and I'm laughing in the sense of saying, let's see what you write in the comments, because it's going to be even funny. So, well, as the 6th theory number, then, as the 2nd theory, it would be that there is going to be a Gear 6, a 6th gear, or something like that. Now, let's go with the 3rd theory, and this is also something that is quite popular, really. It is quite popular, but I would tell you that not many people who agree with this, but there are also many people who do. I mean, well, it's hard to explain. Let me explain. For example, in the comments of the videos, it is a theory that I have seen you repeat a lot. I mean, this is something I've seen repeated a lot, and every now and then I get 1 or 2 messages, whether on Instagram or some comment, wherever, where you tell me this theory, but then I ask people that I know who, let's say, talk a lot about One Piece or something like that, and this theory, they even laugh and say, man, I don't think so. So it amuses me, because it's like among the audience is really into this theory, it seems, but then perhaps among creators or something like that, I don't know if it's that. Of course, we're always engaged in reading One Piece and talking about One Piece all the time. This theory sounds like a joke, but well, I mention it because by me. It seems interesting, and even if I don't completely agree, I think that if so many people agree with this theory, especially the audience, then there must be a reason for it, right? Which is basically the fact that Luffy could be a clone of Roger or a clone of Joy Boy. This sounds strange, but it is like that. I mean, the theory says that Luffy is effectively a clone of the character of Roger or Joy Boy. This theory comes mainly from something we saw in Whole Cake with the whole subject of the Germa that was already presented to us, where there were clones, soldiers that were cloned, and also the whole topic of DNA manipulation, the lineage factor, and all these things. And especially in the Egghead arc, we have seen that there are cloned characters like Stussy, who is a perfect clone of Miss Bakken when she was young. So all these things already show us that the clone theme is possible. In fact, when we did the 7 theories of Shanks, the clone topic was also discussed. And obviously, if we deal with characters, everyone is going to have a clone in One Piece. Because it's fun to think that everyone has a clone and they will surprise us with that. Well, the thing is, as I say, Luffy is would be a clone, either of Roger or of Joy Boy. At first, it was thought to be of Roger. Then the theory came up, what if it's of Joy Boy? What happens? Well, the theory is simple. It's assumed that if it's of Roger, then the world government at some point when they killed Roger, obtained the DNA, obtained the lineage factor from Roger's body, which they obviously had in their hands. I mean, they had executed him. They had the body there. Who knows where the body is now, if it exists or not? The thing is, it is assumed that the world government would have taken that lineage factor, given it to Vegapunk or whoever, the scientist at the time, and managed to clone it, creating Luffy and leaving him directly in the care of Garp, who was the hero of the Navy and the most reliable person from their standpoint. From the point of view that he was a Marine, so he would be, in quotes, his grandson, and let's say they would give him as a son to Dragon, which this, well, wouldn't be his son as such. That's why we might see that Luffy and Dragon perhaps don't resemble each other much physically, and maybe he would resemble Garp a bit more, in the sense that he was raised with him and has adopted certain behaviors from him. This would be a bit of the idea with Roger. I know it sounds like a joke, but well, when you think about it, logic is sometimes bypassed. Yes, the possibility exists, man. Obviously it exists, right? So it needs to be considered. With Joy Boy, well, it's somewhat the same. It's assumed that the world government in the past obtained Joy Boy's DNA, or that it managed to recover it by, it's mainly used as the object, the hat that is in the freezer, this fridge-like chamber that Emu has inside. Mary Joyce, and it's said that this hat belonged to Joy Boy, and since it was Joy Boy's, it had directly there the DNA, and I don't know what they used it to create Luffy, and I don't know, well, a disaster, but well, it is supposed that as a result of all these things they managed to create, well, I don't know, a fetus. They managed to create a baby from Luffy and all this, and then they took him, well, to Villapuxia, where Garp directly took care of him and all that, and of course that Shanks knew this, and that's why he went with Luffy and so on and whatever, because he knew that he was either the clone of Roger and that he reminded him of his captain, or that he was the clone of Joy Boy because he knows Joy Boy. Well, then I know it sounds like a joke, but of course, well, it sounds like a joke because you say it's very crazy, but the impossibility does not exist. I mean, that is, what I am saying are things that have been seen in the manga. The issue of clones seemed like madness, and there it is. The issue of time travel, if I tell you when we are in Dressrosa that you can travel in time, you would say you are high. How is time travel possible in One Piece? This isn't that type. One Piece isn't that type of series. Don't get carried away. And then look what happened. Then look what happened in Wano, where they tell us no, that these others have traveled through time. So hey, maybe we need to be a little careful and say, hey, psst, these things that sound like haha, look at what happened in the end. When I made a video saying that Buggy was gonna be a Yonko, well, Buggy became a Yonko too, and people laughed, and there it is. So hey, be very careful with these things, because especially with the possibility in the work, and having raised the issue of clones, which by the way, as an argument for the theory, the topic of clones hasn't been discussed much considering how intense it is. I mean, we're talking about cloning a person, and this, as I say, hasn't been discussed much. It's very intense. The assertion of being able to clone a person and see the example of Stussy, but not having seen it at its full potential. I mean, Stussy is a random character after all. She is from the Rocks Pirates, or was from the Rocks Pirates, fine, but she is still a random character. We are not talking about cloning Rocks, or cloning Kaido, or Big Mom. And it's true that she has been involved with the Seraphim, all that, but we haven't seen a clone where we say, oh, what a surprise, a clone of this character, and it's amazing. We haven't seen this yet, and that potential, man, it could be that Oda wastes it. Yes, but it would be strange to me, since you're taking a risk by introducing the topic of clones, to not use it to its full potential and say, well, here I'm gonna bring it out and give you the boom. Wow, this character has a clone. This character is dead, but has a clone. And it still poses a constant threat because has a clone of this and is under the orders of the world government, or has gone off on their own, and this clone is doing its own thing because it has taken its own will. I don't know, but I think these are topics that can be explored, and with Stussy it's been touched on a bit, whether she is a clone or if she is real, which is fine. But I think, as I said, it's a topic that has a lot of potential, more, and that it could add. I don't know, imagine that, for example, the man with the scar, the man with the burn is a clone of someone, I don't know, a clone of Rox, or a clone of Roger, or something like that, who goes on his own, who was cloned by the world government but finally broke free, and so on, and now does the things he wants on his own, who feels alive, and that this is the key to of the clone, and that this character is the clone. I don't know, but it seems to me that it's a very important considering how little it has been used. So well, since the theory that Luffy is a clone of Roger and Joy Boy is very crazy, I add this as a bit of support, so to speak, to say, hey, well, be careful. Personally, I'm not quite convinced. No, I don't even know if I would like it. I mean, I think I wouldn't like it. I think I would see it in the work. And no, I don't know. Oda would have to do it very well for me to like it. But well, it's something that, as I say, I wouldn't dismiss. And well, be very careful, because all the theories, as long as they don't include unreal data or make things up or invent things or invent data or change dates or something like that, all these things must be considered because, as I say, we are in One Piece. Here, craziness is normal, little by little, and let's see how things go, what happens with everything. Luffy's fourth theory is also quite sad, somewhat similar to the first, we might say, and it is that Luffy, at the end of the adventure, would die. It's supposed that this theory, let's see, as I said, this theory is also very popular, and by the way, I take the opportunity to mention something, and that is there are many people who, it says that Oda mentioned in an interview that a Straw Hat would die in the end. I haven't seen this anywhere. I mean, I haven't seen this anywhere. I would say it's 99% a lie. You've probably heard this. A lot. Probably you've heard this. Seen it on TikTok. It's especially common on TikTok. Oda said that a Mugiwara would die at the end. I've looked for this. I haven't found the interview. In fact, when I've asked people, they say no. In an interview? What interview? I don't know. I haven't found an official interview. I've seen the statements that say Oda, a Mugiwara will die at the end. Okay, fine, but where does that come from? I mean, on what day was that done? Which media outlet said it? Who did he give the interview to? Who responded? When? I would like to know all those details, but it's nowhere to be found. There are only statements. It's like if I make up, hey, that Oda said, no, I'm going to include Zera in One Piece because I like him a lot. He's my friend, and I'll put him in as text. No, it's that Oda said it. When Zera, well, I don't know. So, starting from this point, be careful, because I know that if I talk about Luffy dying at the end, many of you will tell me this statement from Oda thinking it's real. People, I'm really sorry, but this isn't, well, it's 99% unreal. I mean, if it's real, give me sources or something. I will investigate and all that, but well, if there's something interesting, I'll comment on it. I'll heart the comment so you can see it if there's something worthwhile. But well, I'll leave it there in case you're interested. But as I said, the theory directly talks about Luffy's death at the end of the work. As I said, there are many things to discuss, so many things, and well, first of all, there's the central axis of the theory. Luffy would die at the end of the work. How could he die? What about all of this? Would he die without finding the One Piece? Number of the theory suggests that, well, Luffy finds the One Piece, Luffy does everything. I mean, Luffy fulfills his dream. Luffy does everything perfectly, but in the final war, he sacrifices himself. And he dies. That would basically be the theory. Well, let's see. The problem with this theory is that it is something so future possibility that who knows? When does it happen? What era are we in if there hasn't been another time skip, which I think there hasn't? When does this happen? The situation, the reason, how is Luffy? I mean, it's just so many things. What happened with the One Piece? Has his dream really come true? No. I mean, all of this is like many things, many boxes to tick, as if to say that Luffy is going to die or that Luffy is not going to die. I mean, personally, is Luffy going to die? I would tell you no, really. I mean, I would like the theory, how to go deeper, but the theory is simple. The theory is, final war, Luffy sacrifices himself and dies, and that's it. He saves everyone because Joy Boy ends up dying. That's it. I mean, that's the theory. Do I like it? Well, I don't like it, honestly. And I'm not saying it in the sense of, oh, you don't want any Straw Hat to die. No, I am, for example, if we're in the middle of the final war and Sanji sacrifices himself, you know, since he's prone to sacrifice for these things, or Usopp or these things, well, okay, fine. I see it and I say, okay, it's a good closure for the character. It's cool. It adds something. But to Luffy, who really is the protagonist, who sort of, you see Luffy sacrificing himself just because, and it fits, for me, it doesn't fit at all that Luffy would sacrifice himself without a reason. And I'm not saying he wouldn't do it and all, but I don't think it fits the character. I mean, I think the charm of Luffy is seeing him after becoming the king of the pirates and watching him sail across the sea. Like I said, an Usopp, a Sanji, it doesn't matter much. I mean, they die there and such, and remain as heroes and stay back as a very important memory of the crew. But that's it. He can't go, especially considering something similar already happened with Roger, with the illness and everything. And I think with Luffy, it should be the opposite, that he wins, gets well, is perfect, and is there sailing with all those remaining from the crew, having a good time and being in Inuyasha and eating and all that, really. I mean, these are things that personally I would like. So as a theory, the idea of Luffy dying at the end not only doesn't appeal to me, but I don't think Oda will do it. I mean, think about it. We're talking about One Piece. We're talking about a series that's well known for its fake deaths. I mean, One Piece has a lot of fake deaths, too many even. But you start to look and say, do you really think Oda hasn't killed Kinemon, for example, who is currently alive and is going to kill Luffy? Geez, I find it hard to believe, really. I mean, I find it hard to believe that Oda, who I really like and is the best, but courage when it comes to killing characters, no. He has, poor guy. The truth is no. The truth is no. He has killed a few just because they were practically made to die. So I don't know what to tell you, and well, it's just that I see it almost impossible for the event of Luffy dying to happen. I mean, I see it very difficult, even if it's at the end and everything is already over. But I don't know, I don't feel like Oda wants to get rid of him, especially, let's see, he doesn't often kill off characters, and I think sometimes he avoids it for fear of what people might say. But of course, imagine killing Luffy, which would be a decision that would be a bombshell. I mean, it would be a bombshell in the history of manga anime. I mean, we're talking about One Piece is, now regarding Dragon Ball, obviously Dragon Ball is not at its best moment in the sense that, well, then the passing of Toriyama and all the topic, well, with respect to Dragon Ball, which is the biggest, One Piece is there as the second. I mean, we're talking about One Piece being there as the second, and it's maintaining everything very well. So if you take out the protagonists in their final arc with how acclaimed, important, and representative the entire end of One Piece is going to be, you're doing a very risky move that can go very wrong for you. I mean, it's too risky to play it like that. I mean, you either do something very perfect and have it super perfected in your head to kill Luffy so it looks good and all, and could even be good for the work, or I don't know, I think it's like throwing 2 kilos of dirt on yourself. I mean, I think that get involved in there and start throwing dirt in the coffin by yourself is a bit strange, really. It's a bit strange. So personally, not only do I think it's not gonna happen, but I also wouldn't like it, honestly. As I say, they have to do it very well for it to be consistent, but at first, I think about it and say, God, what a disaster. I mean, I see it completely seriously. I think, and I truly say, God, what a mess. Let's go directly to the 5th theory, and this is one that personally catches my attention. It catches my attention, and it's the theory that Luffy will never be free. And this is curious because it's something that Oda has made sure to give us hints about in the work, but sometimes contradicting his message a bit. So, I want to know what Oda has planned for this. When I say the phrase that Luffy will never be free, I have to give you a bit of context about what generally happens. We know that Luffy is obviously someone who has always greatly valued the idea of freedom. Luffy has always wanted to be a character that is free, characterized by traveling, doing what he wants, enjoying, and he considers that being free is something very positive and something he loves. In fact, it's no coincidence that Luffy is the god of liberation and has that fruit and all that, and Nika and such. I mean, all that. I think the word freedom is associated very much with Luffy. I think it is a word that is strongly associated. The thing is, this theory says that, of course, if Luffy had inherited the will of Joy Boy, if Luffy had Joy Boy's fruit and all this, Luffy has never been free and never will be free because he is destined, obliged in quotes, because destiny is still an imposition, an obligation to do certain things that he has to do. And even though Luffy believes in his head that he has to do them because he wants to do them, he has no other option, he cannot refuse, that is going to happen. So Luffy will never be free, and Luffy, maybe the whole message of the work that's been conveyed to us, could lead to a final arc where he himself is not comfortable with having to do everything he has to do because he has to do it and not because enjoy it. Do you know what I mean? The fact that he realizes he has never been free and has always been, well, with an invisible chain around his neck, just another prisoner of destiny, which I think would be a bit harsh. And I have to say that several things in the story, several arguments, several dialogues already speak to us a bit about destiny. And above all, there is one that to me, I really like, which is I think when they give the first reward or one of the most important rewards to Luffy and so on, when they give it to him, we see that we are in Inuyakija, and we see, I think it was Makino who is talking with the mayor of the city and says, look, Luffy has done it, he is fulfilling his dream, and says his dream or his destiny. And that phrase is left there, kind of forgotten. But of course, this is something that, as I said, throughout the work, the word destiny is repeated quite a bit at very specific points. But for me at this point, I was really shocked because they're talking about Luffy, about the bounty, about being a pirate, and they mention whether maybe it's not his dream, and it's his destiny. And notice who's saying it. It's the mayor of the village where he lived, who probably knows more things than we do, or of what we believe he knows, and might blow our minds with all this, because this particular character casting doubt on Luffy's dream by labeling it, dismissing it as destiny, is concerning, because we're not talking about just any character. It's a character who has known Luffy since he was a child, a character who appears directly in the first chapter and who tries to please have Luffy released just before Shanks arrives. He is the mayor, the most important person in the whole city. So the fact that he mentions his dream or his destiny and asks him, like, do you think he is fulfilling his dream or his destiny? This is concerning, and I would like to know how Oda will address it. I think it would be interesting if he played a little bit with Luffy discovering that everything is, in quotes, orchestrated, and that he has this will, and that he is the god of such, and that he has to do these things just because. But Luffy doesn't want to, and Luffy says, okay, but why do I have to do this? Maybe I don't want to do it. It's not that he's refusing to save the world or do these things, but rather he says, and if I wouldn't want to do it, why must I do it obligatorily? I want to do what I want. I want to do it. I want to save it because I want to save it, not because you tell me I want to save it. I mean, I don't want anyone to impose anything on me. I want to be doing it myself. And the fact of seeing a Luffy struggling mentally with himself, the fact of saying maybe I have never been free and everything I have lived is a lie, and even consider something crazy like dissolving the Mugiwara crew and these things, I think it would be awesome. Personally, I think it would be awesome, and really, it would be incredible. It's something I would love, and I hope, for God's sake, this topic could be addressed, maybe in Elbaf, right? I mean, we've been seeing the whole Egghead arc talks about Nika, Joy Boy, and he kind of hears about this. There have been a couple of times he says, huh? What is this? Like, Joy Boy? Were you referring to me? Sun God, God of Liberation? But it's like he's somewhat interested, but they don't tell him anything. He doesn't become fully interested. I mean, it's like he hears comments and responds to them, being aware that this concept exists, but he doesn't quite deal with them, doesn't end up talking to them, doesn't manage to wrap up certain things. So you see this and think, maybe this isn't included at all, and it's for Luffy to gradually analyze all these things, to go through all these phrases, and at some point in the story, a very crazy point in the story, he ends up analyzing all this and realizes that perhaps his destiny is written and he has never had the option to be free. This, honestly, I would really like to happen, truly. It's a theory that I quite like, and, well, I already have an explanation of why Luffy will be free, but I think the fact of having an internal debate from such a silly character like Luffy, I think it would be interesting, because we always see Luffy in a joking context, laughing, being silly, and I think seeing him tackle such interesting topics like whether he is free or not, like, especially considering that the whole story, let's say, is shouting it from the rooftops, right? As it's usually said, so it would be interesting to see how this whole topic can be analyzed. So as a theory, I like it. Not only do I like it because I think it would be good for it to happen and that I like it for the work, but I believe it will happen, and I think it will be something maybe not exactly like this, but very much in this style. So personally, a positive point from me. I quite like this fifth theory. Now let's move on to the 6th theory, which is very closely related to the one I just mentioned. I just talked about the whole topic of that he would never be free and such, and Joy Boy's will and such. But here I present another situation. What if this destination was not, well, imposed by fate, but imposed by another person? And the theory says that maybe Shanks manipulated Luffy for this. The theory is supposed to, let's see, occupies and encompasses various aspects. The first of all is that Shanks filled Luffy's head to make him become a pirate, to try to convince him that he should be a pirate and tell him all those wonderful stories to a child so that he would want to go out to sea. And it's the most logical. If I go to a child and tell him stories about how I've done fantastic things and how I've done incredible things and so on and so forth, and I tell him story and such, the kid is going to say, hey, well, I also want that. How did you do it? Oh, you're a pirate. Well, then I'll become a pirate too because I want that. What you're telling me is very cool. I want to do it. I mean, it's very fun. I like it, right? So, well, I think this would be the first point. Then we have the point about Luffy's fruit, how he obtains it. He obviously gets it from Shanks, who we know stole a ship from the world government or the Navy. I can't exactly remember which. We see that, well, he attacks that ship, keeps the fruit, leaves it in an open chest, and Luffy goes and eats it. Well, what a coincidence. And on top of that, it was the fruit of Joy Boy, of Nika, right? Wow, what a coincidence, right? Like, wow, two unusual things, right? Then we have the point that Luffy is about to be devoured by the sea monster and goes to Shanks and hands over his arm and loses it. And Luffy, well, that scene leaves a strong impression on him, like saying, damn, Shanks, you lost your arm for me to save me and because I didn't do things right. And he thanks him and promises that he will become a pirate. At that moment, he feels like he owes Shanks, saying, you lost that arm because of me. No, I could disappoint you. I can't be useless. I have to be a really good pirate. And on top of that, to twist the knife even more, Shanks gives him his hat, which is his most prized treasure. That is to say, Luffy knew perfectly well that Shanks' treasure was his hat because he had said it many times. He gives it to Luffy and makes that hat Luffy's treasure. That is, he makes this person, Luffy, not only have the debt of that, but also gives him the hat to have a debt. Even more exaggerated and physical, so he always has it there and never forgets it, so it won't be something he'll forget in a couple of years. No, because he will keep that hat, and every time he looks at it, he will remember Shanks. And that moment, it will be the first memory that comes to his mind. I'm sure that when Luffy thinks of Shanks, the first thing he thinks is that he lost the arm for him. I mean, that trauma, it had to be very harsh for Luffy. And then if on top of that, we add the cherry on top and say that Shanks tells Luffy to return it when he is a great pirate, it means there has been a reunion between them when Luffy is on his level, when Luffy has achieved everything that Shanks was supposedly planning. So there are several things here. The whole manipulation theme is this, in general, that as you can see, it worries. I mean, you start watching this and it worries you a bit because you say, okay, fine, the arguments are not poorly made. The thing is how, derived from this, there are two derivations. The first is that Shanks does it because he wants to save the world and knows it's necessary, because perhaps Roger told him, you have to find my successor, or you have to find someone who is going to be the one who inherits my will and saves the world because it's necessary, and you are going to be the person who you find, and I need you to train him, and I need you to make him fulfill his dream and his will and destiny. And that Shanks manipulated him to make this happen no matter what because it was necessary for the world. In other words, that he does it for a greater good and says, well, Luffy, yes, I manipulated you, but I did it because I wanted to save the world, and I'm very sorry, but it's the best for the world. And this had to happen no matter your freedom to clip your wings and to have had to manipulate you. Why? Because it was to save the world, and I am a good person, and I want this to... Then there is the other option, which is the same manipulation, but he did it for something bad, and maybe he wanted Luffy to be that chosen one and such, and to guide him to the One Piece, because only Luffy can get there. And then Shanks to follow him or go with him and betray him and keep the One Piece for himself and keep with the whole trophy. There are many people, as I say, dealing with one issue or another, especially when you talk about manipulation. It always sounds like Shanks is the bad guy. I mean, if you talk about Shanks having manipulated Luffy, you already think, no, Shanks is really bad. Shanks did this for the One Piece, for power, for gold, for whatever. That is, this always comes up, and obviously I understand that it is the logical option. Now, the other that he might have done it to save the world, it's also very interesting, really. It's very interesting. The problem I have with this theory is that sure, it could happen and it would make sense, but I don't know what mental impact it would have on Luffy. So since at the moment we haven't seen or have a moment, that is the how and when the Shanks versus Luffy or the Shanks with Luffy reunion will happen and all that, I think it is important to consider this because later on, who knows, Shanks might die with Blackbeard. Shanks tells us that plan, everything he planned and all the manipulation through a flashback, but then Shanks dies. He can never tell Luffy. Luffy dies without knowing it, which can also happen. But of course, the fact of the manipulation acted out in front of Luffy, well, I don't know, it could go one way or another. If he would get angry, if he would take it badly, if he would get depressed, if he would try to cut himself off from life or something like that, I don't know. I think it would even be interesting. It would be a topic that I would like to be addressed. And for me, the whole theme of manipulative Shanks, the problem, what I see is that I see so many things that are easily interpretable as manipulation, in a high degree of having formed a totally Machiavellian and schizophrenic plan, which makes it hard for me to think there isn't something hidden behind all that, really. I mean, it's hard for me to see it and think, no, Shanks surely doesn't have anything strange going on and all. These things he's done and all these intentions and everything about losing his arm was of his own will, nothing planned, and surely Luffy wanted it. No, the truth is that it's something that, well, I see it and, I don't know. This topic still worries me a little because I see it and say, it makes so much sense that it even worries me. But well, the manipulative Shanks and all that, there are two variations. The one where he did it for a greater good, and the one where he did it for bad reasons. And well, I don't know. Here I'll rely on comments for you to tell me which one you agree with more, in the fact that you agree with the theory of manipulative Shanks. And if you've seen it differently, leave it in the comments because personally, I'm very interested in reading it. And now let's go with the seventh and final theory, and this is one from the English community, which, as I said, is crazy. I mean, it's a really wild one, really big. I mean, honestly, I'm very crazy with this theory, Tech, and it tells us that Luffy would eat another fruit. Yes, Luffy would eat two fruits. Luffy would have two fruits. Yes, indeed. This theory, as I said, is often discussed in the English community. Why? I don't know. I've looked for the arguments, and supposedly, this is not a joke, supposedly, Luffy will be able to consume 2 Akuma no Mi because he is a D and Ds can consume 2 Akuma no Mi. The thing is, nobody knew, only knew Blackbeard, that's why he ate 2, because he's a D, and that's it. There's no further discussion. He simply ate 2 fruits for that reason, and Luffy at some point will be able to eat another to combine his powers and face Blackbeard, who by that time, somehow would already have 3. This is not a joke. I mean, I've seen that theory, and I wasn't even gonna bring it up, because truly the arguments are very weak. The idea is very simple, but I have seen it discussed a lot in the English community, and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna bring it, honestly. I mean, just to bring it, just as the English community usually does incredible things, as I say, I mean really, the English community knocks us Spanish speakers out of the park with theories. It's crazy. I have seen this one, and I have seen it quite a lot. And for some reason I don't understand, there are many people who think this. So, well, I wanted to bring it up. Why? Well, because there were also many people who commented that Garling was going to be a new Gorosei in the English-speaking community for no reason and without no kind of argument or anything, because I saw this theory even months ago. And then, suddenly, one day it happened that Garling was Gorosei, and the whole English community was, oh well, yes, it was obvious. I didn't see it coming at all, honestly. I.e. then, ooh, afterwards, so to speak, right? I start to look at it, and well, I might come to think about it if I look at it very coldly, but it occurred to them first, even though at first it sounds very crazy if they tell you, no, they're gonna kill a Gorosei and put this guy as the new Gorosei. See how this works, right? Well, this is a bit what happens with this theory of the 2 fruits for Luffy. I think it's bad, honestly. Well, yes, I think it's horrible. Do I think it's gonna happen? Well, no, I don't think it will, but I'm sharing it because if it does happen, well, you can see that I'm considering all the options since I've shared my own theories. I've shared theories from the English community a little bit. Complete video, really. I would have liked to bring a better one about Luffy, but this one was so crazy and all, and just like that it seemed to fit very well with the rest of the video, because the rest of the video had very logical theories, a bit far-fetched, but well, within the madness, quite good. But this one about Luffy's 2 fruits doesn't even have arguments. I mean, it's like, well, he's gonna eat 2 because he's a D and that's it. And that's the argument. And Luffy is going to be very strong and will face Blackbeard. And well, yes, that's a bit of the argument. I don't know, personally, I'm not very convinced, but well, that's a bit the theory of the 2 fruits. And well, There isn't even a second fruit, really. I've seen people saying he would eat Sabo's fruit because he would die. Well, if Luffy eats the fire one and the three brothers eat it, we're out of our minds. Yeah, honestly, a bit crazy. I don't think that's gonna happen, the truth. No, I don't understand it, really. I don't understand it. But well, like I said, let me know in the comments what you think about this theory and also about the others, because we have already discussed the 7 theories about Luffy's character in One Piece. Personally, I like some more than others. Truthfully, there's one I like more than another, and I would like to know, leave it in the comments, which is your favorite theory out of all the 7 I've mentioned, and if you have a slightly different one, an 8th, tell me. Terra, dude. Well, I think this. I think this is gonna happen because of this, because of this, because of this and this. Leave it in the comments, because, you know, I love reading you, and I really like getting your opinions regarding. I have already brought the 7 theories about Luffy. Maybe in the future I can bring 7 theories about Roger or something like that. But well, you know, if we reach 1,000 likes on this video, I'll bring 7 theories about Luffy's mother, which makes no sense at all. Come on. So you know, if you like the video, you can leave a big like, subscribe to the channel for more videos, and nothing more to say. Greetings, and see you in the next video.